Hello and welcome to the program. Now, it's no secret that the relationship between the executive and the legislative arms of government in Nigeria is sour. But things took a turn for the worse last week when, out of the blues, the country's parliament, in a rare joint sitting, passed a number of resolutions targeted at the executive. In fact, to put it straight, the president. The lawmakers stopped short of threatening to impeach the president if the resolutions were not implemented. In all, the resolutions are 12 in number. Of course, some people have called the resolutions demands. Among others, the lawmakers asked the president to give a marching order to security agencies to arrest the series of violence in some parts of the country, stop what they described as a systematic harassment of perceived political opponents by the executive. They also want the president to show sincerity in the fight against corruption by not being selective and also prosecute current appointees that have cases pending against them. They passed a confidence or a vote of no confidence now on the Inspector General of Police demanding his removal. They also passed a vote of confidence on the Senate President Bukola Saraki and the Speaker of the House of Representatives Yakubu Dogara and asked President Buhari to ensure the prosecution of those involved in the invasion of the Senate in April. Now, there's an immediate background, I should say, to all of this. The lawmakers sitting follows the police invitation of the President of the Senate, Bukola Saraki, to explain his role in a robbery incident in his state where 33 persons were killed. The leaders of the gang of robbers have openly confessed that they are political thugs of the Senate President and claimed that he provided them with arms. Of course, the police has also arraigned outspoken Senator Dino Melaye for allegedly sponsoring another group of thugs who have been accused of engaging in robbery, kidnapping, and political killings. There's also the issue of the Inspector General of Police snubbing 3 Senate summons before the lawmakers declared him an enemy of democracy and unfit to hold office. He has, of course, filed a suit against that declaration. So it's against that background that the lawmakers passed those resolutions. They did not give a deadline within which their demands must be met, and the president has actually not said anything about the issue. But joining me now to discuss this further is constitutional lawyer GT Ogunye. Mr. Ogunye, thank you very much for coming on the program. First, let me ask, these resolutions, the lawmakers say must be implemented. Now, from my own understanding of resolutions, they are supposed to be like mere advice, so to speak. Is the executive, for instance, the president now, bound by these resolutions? We're not even talking about the merits of the resolutions now, but, is the president bound by the resolutions?
Certainly not. The president is not bound by the resolutions. But the president is expected, if he takes the responsibility of government seriously, and I should think so, he's expected to look at those resolutions, study them, and see whether indeed those resolutions are warranted and that they are resolutions that ought to be given effect to. An advisory, albeit may not be binding, but if it is an advisory that is given in good conscience and is to ensure that the wheel of democratic governance runs smoothly. So why won't that advisory
let me ask you, in your own,
into?
Yeah, exactly. In your own estimation now, from what you have seen and the background to all of this, would you say this resolutions now, would you say the resolutions were given in good faith from your own assessment? I mean, they passed a vote of confidence on the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and they asked that a marching order be given to the security agencies, creating the impression that before now the President had not given the security agencies any marching orders at all. As a matter of fact, the President has actually done nothing about the security situation in the country.
They're a product of brinkmanship, political grandstanding, and just steps that are meant to tell the executive that the legislature is rock solid behind its leadership. That in recent times has been threatened with removal or whose hold on the lever of dominance in the legislature is reported to be slackening, right? So such resolutions are meant to give the executive a notice that they are not going to be a pushover. Nigerian can recall that this is not the first time a vote of confidence will be passed in the leadership of the Senate. By my reckoning, I think this is like the third time
yes,
for the Senate president under the current leadership. And so when there are threats, real or imagined, to the seat of legislative leadership, they rush to pass a vote of confidence in their leadership, thereby roping in some members of the legislature that they assume will want to move against them. Because once those resolutions are passed in the name of either the Senate or the House of Representatives.
So no lawmaker can actually dissent?
They can actually do that. But they are roped in. You know, they are
as
presumed.
We saw in this case. We later saw some lawmakers coming out to dissociate themselves.
They are presumed to have participated in the making of the resolutions, and that they are banned by the dictates of those resolutions. That's essentially what's going on. It's not as if, by my assessment, it's not as if the legislature truly believe that those resolutions are going to be abided by the executive, and that if the executive fails to do that, they will then move ahead to invoke as they threaten.
And what's
powers.
Your own understanding of that? I mean, because, you know, directly they did not say it, but by saying that they are going to invoke their constitutional powers, what would be your own reading of that? Because the general impression we have is that, look, what would those constitutional powers be if not to impeach the president?
It's a veiled threat to commence impeachment proceedings. And, you know, impeachment is in the air, not in one direction. From what is going on in the print media and in the social media, we hear about impeachment, you know, even regarding the office of the Senate president, that certain signatures are being collected and all that. And then, again, we heard that certain signatures are also being collected in respect of the office of the president of the country. And so that generated a kind of heated argument because those persons mentioned in the latter collection of signatures came on the floor of the House of Representatives to say that they weren't party to such an attempt and all that. So that's why I used the word brinkmanship and grandstanding. Look, if we are to talk about the merit of those resolutions, it beats my imagination that a National Assembly that has defied Nigerians on many questions, including the question of their emolument and salaries and allowances, and on many issues, will then be playing holier than thou and be talking about the executive not doing what is right. I'm not saying that the executive has done everything right. No, that's not what I'm saying. And so, if you have that problem with the legislature, and we now have the same legislature now pointing accusing fingers at the executive, then you wonder what are we getting at. For example, the Senate in particular, on many occasions, has blackmailed the executive, telling the executive that they will not perform their constitutional duties except A, B, C, D are done.
Very quickly now, are you not surprised that you would have this kind of bad blood now between the legislature controlled by the same party that controls the executive?
That's not a correct assessment of the political affiliations and allegiances of the political actors currently. I've used this term before, I think elsewhere, where I talked about a zero-party system like we had in Uganda. Under Yoweri Museveni in Uganda,
He's
when he
still
didn't
the
want,
president.
yes, he still, but under him,
Doesn't want
he didn't want political parties to emerge to contest for power and possibly vote him out of office. So he just legislated that nobody will have political parties. It's a zero-party system. So individuals will throw themselves up. If they voted for, then they go into the parliament. And so we don't have central platforms on the basis of which there could be contested for political power. So in Nigeria, we have political parties. Currently, we have APC, PDP. We have so many other political parties. But the question is, do we have strict adherence to party lines and principles?
Absolutely.
What are these principles? What are these principles anyway? What are the ideologies of this political party? So you have a situation whereby political party platforms are just used as vehicles to access political power and
Is
get
there no
to
allegiance
office
to the party?
and get to political office. So when people are talking about they are from the same party, I say, which party? Does APC really know who and who are its members? Does PDP know? Really, yes, because they perpetually, decamping. In the morning they are a member of the political party, in the afternoon they shift base, in the evening they come back or they go elsewhere. They, as early as yesterday, a senator from another state, you move to another political party. So and I've said, our politicians are power mongers. They are fixated on acquisition of power. And even if we are to have a party named Armed Robbers Party of Nigeria, so far as believe that it's going to give them opportunity to get into office, they will join bandwagon. They will declare that they are members of Nigeria, just for them to get there.
I'll just ask you to hold on. Let's take a short break. When we come, I want us to talk about this latest conferment now of honors on the late MQ Abiola and late Chief Gani Fahimi as well as King Gibe. It's thrown up some legal issues. I would want to get your take on that. So we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. On Deji 360, we don't just ask the questions. What is wrong with amending the Constitution the way the National Assembly members have been doing it? We seek answers.
Constitution is constituent. Our problem is not lack of laws. Our problem is lack of the willpower to implement our laws.
Answers that provide clarity.
While we negotiate, we should try to make it a point that the girls must be complete.
The clarity you need to make informed judgment so that you can make the right decision and take action. People are saying it is you politicians that are responsible for this, that you are the reason why this is happening.
All these dollars that call themselves governors in this country.
I wish we had people like Tony at the National Assembly.
God forbid that I go to join that ballot.
Deji 360, providing clarity to issues. Welcome back. I still have Mr. Ajitu Ogunye here. Let's look at the pronouncement by the president now confirming June 12th as Democracy Day, and of course the honors bestowed on posthumous honors now, especially bestowed on MK Abi and Chief Gani Fahimi. It's actually thrown up some kind of debate. I mean, for instance, we had the former Chief Justice of Nigeria come out to say that it's actually against the law of the country, especially the National Honors Act, for a posthumous award now to be bestowed on an individual, that the person has to be there to receive that award in person, and so that it's actually not right. And we've also had arguments against it. What's your own take?
First and foremost, I think that it was wrong for the former Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Mahmoud Alpha Belgore, to have issued that statement.
Well, he used to be the chairman of the National Honors Act.
He's still the chairman. No other chairman has been appointed. And it's for that reason that I'm making this point. He was appointed to that position by the former president.
Yeah.
And we can confirm that since Muhammadu Buhari came to power as president, we've not had any award, meaning that he's not exercised the functions of that office, under administration. 2015, 2016, 2017, this is 2018 now. We never had any award. And we learned that the disposition of the president about this award is that this award has become too cheap, and that people who are not supposed to be given these awards are just given these awards. And so it's not fancy, really, just dishing out these awards. All sorts of persons in Nigeria have gotten this award,
yes,
including notorious but famous tax defaulters.
That's true.
Who are given the highest awards in the land. That's not how to honor people in a country. If we're talking about value reorientation, we're talking about ethical reforms, we're talking about a new society and all that. And so when the president issued that letter, issued that declaration that is consulted widely, he came out and declaimed it. And I thought that since there must be a channel of communication, if you have reservation about it, since no new chairman has been appointed anyway, he should have used that channel to say, look, do you think we can do this, and so on and so forth, and then perhaps see whether there could be some correction. That said, I don't condemn the exercise of right to freedom of speech. We want an open society. Absolutely. And we want robust debate. That said, I don't think that the former Chief Justice of Nigeria and chairman of the award committee is right. If you look at the provisions of the National Honors Act, in particular paragraph 3, article 3, that talks about the mode of appointment, there is a provision there that says that the president can jettison the requirement for the personal and physical appearance of another person to receive the award. The award is, once a person is nominated, is given when that person shows up to receive the award by wearing the emblem and then taking a certificate and a handshake. Now, if the person is not physically there, the question then is, can that person be given that award in absentia? That's the first consideration. For example, if Nigeria were to be involved in a war with another country, and a leader of Nigeria or a soldier is captured and held in an enemy's territory, so can that person receive an award while he's not physically present? I think so. Although he will still be alive, but I think so. So if you stretch it further, therefore, you can then imagine that if that provision is creatively and purposefully, interpreted, it will be possible to grant the award posthumously. More so when there is no provision in that act that prohibits such posthumous award. So that which is not specifically prohibited is permissible.
And you're absolutely right. There's no provision
prohibiting that. And given our history, given the circumstances in which these persons worked for this country, including the one who died in military custody. I'm talking about Chief M.K. Abiola. At what other time could he have been granted that award? Post-1998, when Abacha died, when he died, when the military left, earlier than 1999, 29. So there is no way he could have been granted that award except posthumously. For anybody to now come forward to say that, no, that shouldn't have happened, is insensitive, if you ask me. Is not reading the national mood correctly. Because the national mood in this country since the man died, so say, oh, this man did everything what he did was offense. He just wanted to be the president of Nigeria, help Nigerians to chase away the military away forever from political power. And he won an election, declared to be the freest and fairest in the history of Nigeria. There was no violence, and he defies all national malaise in terms of what we afflict ourselves by, ethnicity, religion. He fights all those things. And he won that election, and he was arrested. He was held in solitary confinement, so much so that 2 years after his wife was shot dead in the street of Lagos, he was never given any information. It was when Abacha died, and they were touting the possibility of his raid, and they were telling him that, look, just forget about this, your mandate, so that you can go home. And he was saying, no, that's not going to be possible. When they brought in all the foreign diplomats, including Ambassador Thomas Pickering, the American who served him that tea, when he died, and Nayaku and Kofi Annan and all of them, trying to persuade him, that he was told for the first time that his wife had died 2 years before that. That was the victim of military dictatorship, who was a symbol. And so this president is saying, look, for our collective guilt, because he was also in a way, and I'm talking about the president, serving with Abacha when that incident happened. He was the chairman of PTF. Then it was more or less in Abacha's corner. So if you now say that for our collective guilt, let's try to do reparation. Don't forget that Abela was the man talking about reparation to the black race and all that. When he died, that campaign died, right? Now let's pay reparation to this man who was talking about reparation to black race and all that, And perhaps after this, maybe other things will follow. The Senate has jumped in. I guess they are trying to get a piece of the action, but it's salutary. I'm not going to condemn them, And then Solidarity says, oh, let's look at the law. I'm a stickler for the rule of law. The law has not so provided. When certainly there is no provision prohibiting such posts, who must award. I think it's in bad taste. Elsewhere, because, countries of common law jurisdiction, do some comparative analysis and all that. In the United States of America, there's something that's called post-host citizenship. American soldiers who are not American citizens, who die in combat for America, will be given, who are given posthumous citizenship. It can't then be the question, how can you...
Because we had a senator saying that he's not
No, that's where I'm going. That the dead person is no longer a Nigerian, and therefore it cannot be honored posthumously. In any case, culturally in this country, people die. 3 years, 4 years after, you hear remembrance. And then they go to church, they go to mosque. So why do you say that they are no longer Nigerians? Why should you honor them anyway? And even statutorily, in our criminal law, if you go to the grave of a dead person and desecrate that grave and then go and take the skull, that's a criminal offense. Yes. The state will stand in the gap for that person. And that person is dead, but the state will insist that you've done something that is wrong. The argument could just be made that, these are no longer citizens. They are no longer subject at law anyway. Why is the state bothered about them? Right? So I think that argument is in bad taste.
I also feel that argument made by that senator is actually
when the law does not support that proposition.
All right. Mr. Ogunye, thank you very much for coming on the program and for sharing your thoughts with us. We'll take a short break and we'll be back.